Hello, everyone, and welcome to On Purpose Astrology. I'm Mandy Lockley, and today I'm going to be talking about the 19th of August full moon in Aquarius. There's some really interesting aspect configurations, some T squares, which I'll talk about what that is if or kind of fairly newcomers to astrology, and the energies that those bring and how we can consciously use those energies in a more positive and productive way. Because while T squares represent challenges, they also represent fantastic opportunities for growth. They're moving aspects, which means they're transits in the sky, so they're going to be more intense if they actually touch your natal chart. And also they are temporary, short-lived sort of bursts of sort of, like a lesson, like sitting in on one lesson. If we think that all life is a school, every day is a school day, life is all about learning and growth. These short-lived moving T squares are like little lessons that kind of punctuate our broader learning and growth through our life. So I'll talk about that. But first of all, you might have heard that this full moon is a blue moon and also a super moon. So what does that mean? Well, a super moon basically means that the moon is at the closest point to the Earth as it will be, because the moon not only orbits us, it also kind of moves in that way. So it's moving around, and as it moves around, it's also moving like this. So it has what's called an aphelion and a perihelion when it's further away and when it's nearest to us. And it's nearest to us. What does that mean? It means that it's going to look bigger. It's going to look brighter. So look out on the 19th. I'm recording this on the 19th. I know I'm a little bit late with this. I might have mentioned, I did mention in my last video, such a lot been going on with me. Things have just been rather intense with Pluto transits. So there you go. But it's a larger moon. So energetically, it's kind of closest. So we can kind of feel it maybe more intensely, but also we can feel the wonder of this moon when it's really close to us. It's lighter, it's brighter. And don't forget that the moon doesn't have its own light. So when we see the light of the moon, it's actually the reflective light from the sun, which is why these lunations, the new moon, the full moon, for example, but also the quarter moons as well, which is moon square the sun, these lunations, as we call them, are they are kind of one of the linchpins of astrology, the linchpins of sort of our energetic journey through the months and through the years. So let's have a look at the chart for this full moon. Now, as I say, I am recording this on the morning of the 19th. So perhaps I'm a little bit late, but these energies are still there to be worked with. If you're looking at this video on the 21st, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and so on, we're still seeing some amazing sort of energies that we can work with. So let's have a look at the chart. So let's see, here we go. Here's the chart. So I've set the chart for London. As always, you can ignore the house placements because if you're in a different location, it will fall in a different house, most likely. And the thing to look at really is, where does this full moon fall in your own birth chart? As I always say, you can look at your birth chart. You can find your birth chart if you don't know it for free on places like astro.com and also alabe.com. You can for free get your own chart up, so you can see which house. The houses are areas of life. Again, as I always do, I will post a little link that you can look at if you want to look at where, what the houses mean very briefly and generally. I'll put a little link so you can see what that means. So you can look to see where, you can see there in house 1 in this chart, 27 degrees of Aquarius is the moon, and opposite 27 degrees in the 7th house is the sun. So where does 27 degrees of Aquarius and 27 degrees of Leo fall in your chart? What house does it fall into? And also, what does it touch as well? If it's very close to another planet in your chart, or close to one of the angles, the house cusps, the angles of the lines you see on house 1, 7, 10, and 4. Those are also important places in your birth chart, but you need an accurate pretty much accurate birth time to sort of know exactly where the angles lie. But enough of that sort of exposition. Let's see what we really mean by this full moon in Aquarius. Well, Aquarius, it's about connection. It's about connection. It's an air sign. All the air signs are about connection through communication, connection through being with other people. It's a sociable sign. If you look at house 3 there, I'll put a little arrow under the blue Uranus symbol there. So there is a T-square. I mentioned in my intro that there's T-squares in this chart. There's 2 T-squares, actually. So Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. The traditional ruler of Aquarius is Saturn. And then when Uranus was discovered, they attributed the ruler of the rulership of Uranus to Aquarius. Now, depending on what kind of astrology you follow or you practice, you might use the modern rulers, you might use the traditional rulers. I tend to look at both. I don't discount either. So we've got one of the rulers of Aquarius, Uranus, in a square to, it's an exact square, you see it's 27 degrees of the fixed signs. It's in Taurus, 27 degrees, which is the same as the 27 degree of the sun and the moon, which makes it really tight. The tighter it is, the more intense it is. Now, when Uranus is doing anything, it brings intensity. Now, some of the qualities and the values of Aquarius include the urge for freedom, for independence, for originality, for being your unique self, however different and unconventional that might be. And I think there's that urge in all of us, even if we're sort of, one of the more conservative, small c conservative signs. It's also about equality. It's humanitarian, Aquarius. It's about community, groups, and friendships, which is why I've called this video Friendship and Freedom, Freedom and Friendship. So when you have the planet of wanting freedom, wanting to break out of the chains, Uranus in a square to this full moon here, you get that kind of urge for freedom. Now, a full moon is, as I said, the full light of the moon. Things come to light, especially as it's going to be it is a really bright full moon at the moment, this super moon, super fabulous, great moon. You will see things that come to the surface. So maybe there's that feeling of wanting to find some freedom in your life, just temporarily. As I say, these are very fast moving aspects. Where can you get a little bit of freedom, a little bit independence? It might just be on the full moon day itself, or the day before, or a couple of days after. You might feel the need to just have a bit of time to do exactly what you want. And that can be quite intense because it's a fixed T-square. In the fixed signs, we see Leo, we see Aquarius, we see Taurus with Uranus. The fixed signs tend to be about attachment, about holding on, whereas Aquarius is all about letting go. So maybe when you see your relationships in the light of where can I let go energetically of some of the attachment that I have to an outcome, to a dynamic, a relationship dynamic, to a behavioral dynamic. So that's where we can work quite positively. And remember that we don't want to hurt other people. We don't want to be mean. We want to be friendly. We want to be compassionate. I mean, the air sign, of Aquarius isn't particularly known for being compassionate in that sort of emotional sense of, say, the water signs, but there's certainly a mental compassion about wanting things to be fair. So think about fairness in your relationships. Are you or getting or giving a fair deal in your relationship? Where can you let go of maybe little things that are kind of nagging you, where you can kind of like let things just flow a little better, really. So, but it can be quite intense. As I said, it is a T-square. T-squares are about growth, where we can find some areas for growth, where we can learn a lesson in a good way. Otherwise, they can come back to us as sort of challenges. You know, if we don't sort of do the energies of our T-squares, and I'm talking mostly about T-squares, most intense ones are the ones that we have in our birth chart. In case you don't know, a T-square is where you have an opposition, which we have here, the sun and the moon, and then there's a square. They square another part in your chart, and the axis of the square in this case, which is Uranus, is where most of the intensity lies. So freedom and wanting to do something different. With Uranus, you can be a little bit impulsive. You can be a little bit reckless at times. So try not to, as they say, throw the baby out of the bathwater when it comes to a relationship. Don't sort of spoil a relationship over something simple and small that you can kind of deal with in other ways. Give yourself some space, give yourself some freedom, give yourself some independence, but always remain kind to yourself and kind to others. Remember, the best kind of relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship relationship, or in the workplace with colleagues and family, etc., the best relationship is one that is fair. So where can you find more fairness and equality? You'll also see here the sun is conjunct Mercury. Mercury is retrograde at the moment. It will be retrograde until the 29th of August. So some of these issues that might come up for you personally or in any kind of relationship might feel like you are going over old ground. You're having to redo or reassert or rethink things. Anything with a kind of i.e. do it again, is a Mercury retrograde thing. So if an old pattern comes up in a relationship or sort of in your own sort of psychology or psyche or your own emotions and feelings and behaviors, something older comes up, things you might have dealt with might need to do a little bit more work. So the second T-square. Well, the second T-square you can see here, just below the moon in the first house, you see Saturn at 17 degrees of Pisces. It's 10 degrees away from the moon in this chart. So it's a little bit wide to be conjunct, i.e. to be very close to the moon. And then we also see at 18 degrees, just above the sun in the seventh house, we can see Venus there in Virgo. And that makes a T-square to Mars and Jupiter here in Gemini. And you can see those in the fourth house. I put a little arrow to point out. So there you have the second T-square in this. So again, Venus, it's all about relationships. Oppositions, in this case, Saturn and Venus, are all about relationships anyway, generally speaking. One way to look at oppositions, rather than obviously they're about relationships, is to look at projections. By that, I mean projections that go both ways. What of your stuff are you projecting onto someone else? Or what is being projected onto you by others? Because it's a full moon, these realizations can come to the surface. You can think, oh, okay, I'm in a relationship with someone who I feel is a little bit reserved or a little bit cool or a little bit, cold or a little bit sort of holding back, or there's some kind of obstacle in the way of the relationship. This person is blocking me or restricting me in some way, or you might come to the realization that it's you doing that. I'm talking about the Saturn here in this Venus Saturn. Might be worth thinking in terms of, well, how does that relate back to other relationships, relationship dynamics generally? What are we projecting? If we've had relationships where we felt blocked, where we felt restricted. We're going back to that freedom theme again in this chart, where we felt like perhaps the love and the affection that we wanted wasn't there, or perhaps we weren't able to give that love and affection to the other person for whatever reason. How are we projecting onto them, or they projecting onto us sort of stuff, so to speak, from other relationships? It could be other relationships, other romantic relationships, other friendship relationships, and work relationships, and of course, going back further, family dynamic relationships in early life that kind of we tend to project. We see someone, for example, that might be might reflect back to us our father figures from our younger years. So then we relate to them in a kind of father figure kind of way. So these things could kind of come to the surface to be worked on. And how can we do that? Well, Venus in Virgo can get hung up on the small stuff. So the first sort of thing is to think about, well, are we sweating the small stuff? Is it really that important? It may be, it may not be. This is where we need discernment. This is where we need to discern what's important and what isn't. And discernment is one of the values and one of the skills of Virgo, because we've got the Venus here in Virgo. It's very good at being discerning. It can be quite critical. It can cut things off, that again, we're talking, we're going back over the chart and thinking that theme of, don't throw away things that are good when you can kind of just work on, working on the small stuff as well. You might actually find working on the small stuff, as well as don't sweat some of the small stuff. Perhaps working on some of the small stuff can make a big difference in terms of our relationship. And don't forget, whenever we talk about relationships, we're ultimately talking about our relationship to ourselves, because we bring ourselves to every relationship. I was just watching watching some daytime TV while I was kind of putting my makeup on to get ready to do this video, and someone said about how they spending their time, how they've changed their life by kind of spending their time more with people who they consider as radiators rather than drains. How are you spending your time with other people? Saturn is about time. Your time is valuable, right? It's limited. Saturn, time is limited. At least that's how we perceive time. There's never enough time. Are you spending time with people generally in your life who would kind of make you feel drained? There's that's that energetic thing, that tuning into those energetic levels. Are you feeling, or do you feel woken up alive? That radiator, that kind of warm glow of being with people. I know that's something that I've been working on quite consciously over the last few years. So there's another thing to sort of think about. Now, as I said, there's two T-squares, so Venus and Saturn. Oh, just to say, you might be feeling a little bit. Some of you might be feeling a little bit kind of lonely as well, because Venus and Saturn can make you feel a little bit lonely, a little bit wanting to reach out into to be sociable. Don't forget, full moons are sociable anyway, generally, but this full moon is in Aquarius, which makes it even more sociable because it's a sociable sign. Saying that, Aquarius needs its time to be itself. Sometimes it needs a bit of alone time as well. So if you're feeling that way, well, it's a full moon, you might feel you want to go out there. Try and be sociable if you can. Try and find those radiators. Try and contact those radiators in your life. Maybe there's someone from the past. Venus in Virgo, who you can contact. Venus in Virgo is ruled by Mercury. We see Mercury in this chart retrograde. Old people might come back into your life, or you might kind of someone you haven't seen for a while. You might think, cool, oh, do you fancy doing something? Do you fancy hanging out? Do you fancy doing something? It's a great time for friendships. Going back to the T-square here, this Venus, Saturn, the T-square, the axis of the T-square. So the major focus of this T-square here, you can see at the bottom of the chart is Mars and Jupiter in Gemini. Now, this is a good thing. Gemini is the planet of mindset, it's ideas, it's communication. So think about what your mindset is, your negative mindset or your positive mindset. Try and raise your vibration, raise your frequency by trying to not being Pollyanna and seeing the good in everything, because that can be just kind of real. We need to see reality with Saturn, because Saturn's part of this picture. We need to see reality, but what is the more positive side of the reality? Okay, because Jupiter brings confidence. Jupiter asks us to have self-belief, the self-belief and the confidence that we can create our own reality through our thoughts. And thoughts are real things, and thoughts can manifest in behaviors, they can manifest in actions, which ultimately manifest tangibly in the real world. So think about your thought patterns here. Mars is about anger. It's also about desires as well. Mars is about a lot of things. Are you putting angry thoughts out there? Or are you putting healthy, assertive thoughts out there? Are you thinking in healthy ways, in assertive things? It's also about speaking your truth. What is your truth? Okay. Confident action. Remember the discernment of Venus in Virgo when it comes to your values, because that's another thing that Venus is about. It's about values. So be in integrity, be discerning about how you spend your time, Saturn, and how you think about your relationships, how you think about you're going to spend your time, how you're going to act and what you're going to act upon. Sometimes we might need to hold our words in until we have more of the bigger picture. Don't forget that, as I said, that Virgo there, Venus in Virgo, is about the small stuff. Gemini is also about the small stuff. Again, it is a Mercury ruled sign, Gemini. And we have that Mercury still in retrograde until the 29th of August. So again, where are you kind of sweating the small stuff? How are you acting out in terms of sort of the tension from the small stuff? Because Jupiter is great. Jupiter's about confidence. It's about opportunity. It is ultimately about growth. But it can also really expand anything that it touches. So it can expand, the Saturnian feelings, that feelings of restriction, that feelings of sort of there's not enough time. But it can also, if we consciously allow it, expand things in a positive way by speaking our truth with integrity, with discernment, and in compassionate ways. Remember, there are ways to speak our truth, to tell our truth, to describe our desires, our feelings, our ideas, our truths, in ways that set boundaries so that we don't want other people to take advantage of us and overstep our boundaries. So again, we're going back into Saturn. So the growth aspect here, part of the growth for some people, and I know it's something that I'm constantly working on, is setting boundaries with people, setting boundaries of where I use my time and my energy. And again, we're going back again to this Venus in Virgo in relationship. There's a kindness there. There's a kindness with Virgo. It's very kind and helpful, Virgo. So where are you being kind and helpful, but where is that kind of wearing you out and wearing you down? Saturn in Pisces, you can be worn out and worn down. So where's the opportunity of growth in terms of setting boundaries? Setting boundaries, it might be to just have a conversation. This is my truth. It might not be welcomed by the other person, particularly if you're a very much giving person and you always say yes and you don't know how to say no. If you start to say no, and I've experienced this myself, if you start to say no, then the person, who you say no to when you always say yes, you might feel some of their anger. Remember, that's their responsibility. It's always never too late to reset your boundaries. So be polite, be kind, but set your boundaries. Know where your line is and where to say no. So there's some really interesting dynamics going in here, and I'm talking more and more about these aspects, these aspect configurations, the way the planets and the sun and the moon, the way they dance with each other, because it's a universal dance, and they dance and we join the dance, we're in the dance, and it's how we dance. We can dance with a feeling of joy or peace or love or kindness, or we can do it by feeling, feeling resentful or resistant, or so it's up to us, to sort of try our best. We're all only human, but try our best. Well, I shouldn't say only human. Being human, actually being a human being on planet Earth, I mean, what a privilege. What a beautiful privilege. We're going back into that Aquarius feeling now. That, Aquarius loves the world and wants the world to be a better place, wants the world to be a kinder place, wants the world to be a place that's fair, where there is abundance for everybody. Jupiter is about abundance of ideas, Jupiter in Gemini, abundance of positive mindset. Ultimately, Gemini is a positive sign, abundance of words, abundance of actions, right actions that follow on from those words. So over the next week or so, I hope you have a wonderful and abundant time. I hope you are able to, whatever's going on, there's a lot of anxiety at the moment. There's a lot of intense energies going on generally that are coming into our world when you watch the news, but just generally on the energetic level, there's a lot of intensity. And that can easily lead to, for a lot of people, for, anxiety, if you're feeling anxious. I've been having a lot of anxious moments lately. So there are tools. So dig deep into your toolbox. Breathing is great. If you're feeling anxious, breathing. Get help, obviously, if you need to. But if you can, try to just set the intention. I always talk about the new moon is a time really to set your intentions, but on any lunation and on any day, really, set an intention on this full moon when everything comes to light. Set the intention. How are you going to react and respond to any of the challenges that come and the things that you feel that might be more intense than usual, the things that you think that might be more intense than usual. What kind of energy are you going to put into it? You can't stop your thoughts, of course. You can't stop those feelings. It's natural. It's human. As I said, it's fantastic to be human. But where can you find just these little pieces of joy? Where can you find love? Put the energy, focus the energy in your heart space. The sun is all about the heart, particularly in Leo. Leo is all about the heart. Where can you put your energy into your heart? Put it into your heart. See if you can feel. It takes a bit of practice, and you have to use your imagination at first, and maybe always use your imagination. It's all about your imagination. Imagine breathing in and out of your heart space. Your heart isn't just a muscle. Your heart is also one of your three brains, being the brain here in your head, and also your gut brain, that instinct. Your heart is that compassionate brain as well. Feel it in your heart if you can. Practice that. Breathe in and out into your heart. Do something that makes your heart sing, even for a second, even just going out into the garden. I woke up this morning, I put the news, I looked at the news online, and the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which happens every year, they have a vote for the funniest joke. So on the news, normally the news is just like, mostly the news that gets reported is bad news. But there's a list of all the jokes from the Edinburgh Fringe Festival this year that have been voted the funniest jokes. Look that up, Edinburgh Fringe jokes. Little bit of joy, little bit of laughter, but a little bit of kind of light relief. So find that where you can. As I say, the opportunity here is for very positive signs. We can see the things, we can see our projections, we can see things for as they are. We can use our mind to look at it in healthy ways. We can use our words to set our boundaries, and we can, don't forget to give ourselves a little bit of freedom. Sure, go out there, socialize, party even if you want to. I mean, there's a lot more partying going on often under a full moon. Give yourself that freedom to sort of let your hair down, so to speak, in a healthy way. Give yourself a bit of space, give yourself a little freedom, but always bear in mind that we are in relationship to ourselves, we are in relationship to other people, we are in a relationship to other things at all times, and try and find that healthy balance. So I hope that is useful and interesting. Thank you for watching. Again, I'm sorry this video is a bit late. I've had a lot going on lately, and it's been pretty intense for me with having a massive Pluto transit, as well as Saturn transiting. Saturn is also making an aspect to my Pluto, so I'm having like double Pluto stuff. But I am learning a lot about myself. I'm learning a lot about all the resources that I and you and all of us have and can have to really get through sometimes some of the most difficult things. So I hope you have resources that you can use. I hope you can become aware of the energies. I hope you can use them positively. That's my wish for you. And remember to be colloquial about it. Shit happens in life, right? And it's how we kind of look at it, how we deal with it, how we ascribe it, that really brings us that growth. As always, I really love you all, and thank you so much for watching. Cheerio. Bye-bye.